Imagine the world's richest man, a pioneer of both Mars colonization and electric cars, sitting in the Oval Office, pillbox in pocket, bruised face, grinning for the cameras. This isn't science fiction, but a bizarre chapter unfolding at the very heart of global power. Now imagine the president himself brushing off whispers of drug use, dismissing headlines as political noise. Yet behind closed doors, aides are alarmed, investigators are circling, and Wall Street is starting to sweat. How did Elon Musk, already a tech legend and business icon, become enmeshed in a scandal that threatens not just his reputation, but the credibility of the White House and the very future of American innovation? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will change how you see power, influence, and the fine line between genius and chaos. Let's back up. Elon Musk's reputation as a disruptor is legendary, sometimes inspiring, sometimes infuriating. From founding PayPal to launching Tesla and SpaceX, his fingerprints are all over the technologies shaping the 21st century. He's taken on climate change, the auto industry, satellite internet, and even the boundaries of human consciousness with neural implants. By 2024, Musk's influence reached a new high. Appointed as head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, he promised to trim bureaucratic fat and save the U.S. government $1 trillion. The appointment was unconventional, but so was the era. President Trump, locked in a historic political comeback, positioned Musk as the ultimate outsider-insider, a businessman given real government power. At first, the move looked brilliant. Musk's first acts at DOGE were decisive and dramatic. Whole federal offices were shuttered overnight, regulations were slashed, millions of dollars were reportedly saved within weeks. Headlines crowed about the Doge Father's revolution in Washington. Social media exploded with memes both for and against. Yet beneath the bravado, something else was brewing. Rumors began to swirl, not just about the fierce infighting among Trump's inner circle, but about Musk's private conduct. Stories surfaced. Musk at meetings with a battered face, waving away questions about his bruises as roughhousing with his young son. Musky jokes about rough nights became fodder for late-night TV. But it wasn't just comedy. The New York Times would later publish a bombshell report, allegations that Elon Musk was using a cocktail of drugs, ketamine, ecstasy, psychedelic mushrooms, and more, even as he occupied one of the most powerful advisory roles in America. Close aides were reportedly alarmed. An anonymous source claimed Musk carried a pillbox on official trips, loaded with everything from Adderall to unidentified capsules. Was America's efficiency czar fueled by more than ambition? When questioned at a White House event, President Trump denied all knowledge. "I wasn't aware," he told reporters, glancing at Musk, who wore a Doge Father t-shirt and a faint bruise. "I think Elon is a fantastic guy." Musk laughed off the press, calling the reports another politically motivated smear. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, whose wife reportedly worked for Musk, brushed it all off. The drugs that we're concerned about are the ones crossing the southern border. The administration's casual response felt surreal. After all, this was the same White House that had spent years championing a tough-on-drugs stance. But if D.C. was willing to look away, the world was not. Financial markets felt a disturbance. Tesla and SpaceX board members were reportedly worried. According to a Wall Street Journal exclusive, some directors were quietly exploring the risks. What legal liabilities would Musk's alleged drug use create for companies with billions in government contracts? Could NASA afford to gamble on a CEO who might fail a surprise test? Would investors keep faith in a man whose stability was now in question? Expert voices soon weighed in. Neuroscientist Philip Lowe, who once worked closely with Musk on brain interface technology, went public with claims of Musk's decline, pointing to erratic outbursts and, in one infamous episode, what Lowe described as a Nazi-like salute at a company gathering. His behavior was not just eccentric, it was alarming, Lowe told Bloomberg. We need to ask ourselves what risks we're tolerating because of someone's brilliance. Public intellectual Sam Harris was even harsher, arguing on his podcast, if Musk is not just impulsive but actively abusing drugs while spreading misinformation to hundreds of millions, then we're talking about the moral equivalent of a drunk pilot with a jumbo jet full of passengers. Yet support for Musk remained doggedly loyal in some quarters. After a reported assassination attempt on President Trump in the summer of 2024, Musk doubled down, appearing even closer to the president. His critics saw this as opportunism. His fans called it loyalty under fire. And what about Musk himself? Amid fierce speculation, he broke his silence. The NYT story is false. My doctors prescribed ketamine for depression years ago. I don't use it now. It's all a witch hunt. He used his social channels to frame the story as another establishment attack on visionary thinkers, tapping into the same anti-elite energy that had propelled President Trump's base. But the inconsistencies only mounted. Vanity Fair reported Musk had privately admitted to near-daily ketamine use, so severe it led to urinary and bladder problems. Colleagues described him as at times brilliant but scattered. By noon, he'd insulted 3 cabinet members. By 4 p.m., he was incoherent. Bloomberg dug deeper, uncovering patterns of dodged drug tests at SpaceX, despite strict federal guidelines for company leadership. Employees recalled warnings before supposedly random screenings. Nobody wanted to be the one to catch Elon, said a former HR executive, but we all knew something was off. Worse, the narrative now stretched far beyond individual conduct. With every new leak, the pillbox in the West Wing, the mishandled drug tests, a string of slurred late-night tweets, the stakes for corporate America grew. Would stricter board oversight be forced into place, not just at Tesla but across the Fortune 500? Would government contracts suddenly require automated, AI-driven screening of all top executives? Some predicted a mental health reckoning at the top of industry. We have to stop pretending that titans like Musk are gods, said MIT ethicist Dr. Nia Washington. They're human beings, facing unimaginable pressure. Ignoring warning signs is no longer an option, for their sake and for ours. Still, the Musk model of chaotic genius had its defenders. Skeptics saw the story as exaggerated or politically motivated. Corporate raiders and venture capitalists both argued that the occasional scandal is the price of revolutionary brilliance. Show me a founder who hasn't bent the rules and I'll show you a founder who didn't matter, one billionaire quipped off the record. Yet for every excuse, fresh evidence emerged. By late spring 2025, a leaked DOJ document suggested the government was quietly reviewing Musk's eligibility for security clearances and contract bidding. Meanwhile, international partners grew nervous about the reliability of Musk's companies. China's state media openly questioned whether Tesla's self-driving software could be trusted if its architect was chemically compromised. European regulators discussed new guidelines for vetting CEO conduct. And in the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, the questions only grew louder. How much risk is too much, even from a genius who's delivered real-world miracles? At the same time, voices of caution warned against a witch hunt. Could this feeding frenzy on Musk distract from deeper issues of accountability and transparency in American business? Was the real story about one man's alleged habits, or the system that enabled him, uncritically, in pursuit of another billion-dollar disruption? As the summer of 2025 drew on, more disturbing details surfaced. Bizarre public appearances, odd hand gestures, and a string of erratic executive decisions. SpaceX insiders leaked concerns about launch schedules and safety protocols. Tesla's legal team quietly expanded their crisis communications team. And yet, through it all, the question persisted. How much of Musk's legend was smoke and mirrors, and how much risk were government, business, and society willing to shoulder for the promise of another breakthrough? In the next part, we'll investigate what happens when allegations morph into concrete consequences, when leaders must decide between loyalty and liability, and whether America's age of visionary disruptors is heading for a brutal reckoning. What happens to an innovation economy when its most audacious risk-taker becomes its biggest liability? Tonight, as the cameras fade from the bruised laughter and presidential farewells, the real drama, the future, begins behind closed doors and in boardrooms across America. Elon Musk's journey, immortalized in memes, headlines, and ambitious policy, has now collided with an uncomfortable reality. The boundaries between genius, power, and personal recklessness are blurrier than ever. What comes next, not just for Musk, but for everyone entangled in his orbit, will be shaped as much by perception as by fact. Let's explore the potential consequences and uncharted scenarios swirling around this unprecedented moment in tech and political history. First, the legal and financial repercussions. Despite official denials, the drumbeat of reports, from the infamous pillbox sightings to whispered accounts of dodged drug tests, has sent shockwaves through Wall Street and Washington alike. As a government contractor, Musk's companies are subject to strict regulations around executive conduct. Already, sources within Tesla and SpaceX admit that boardroom conversations have turned tense. If there's a whiff of non-compliance, the Department of Defense won't hesitate to re-examine our eligibility for sensitive contracts, one SpaceX executive reportedly warned after the NYT expose. Could we witness a full-scale government investigation? It's possible. Legal scholars point to the precedent set by the 1980s savings and loan crisis, where seemingly untouchable executives faced criminal charges after initial denial and delay. If proof emerges of intentional deception, especially regarding federal projects, the consequences could include massive fines, canceled contracts, or even charges of perjury. Investors are bracing for volatility, as any government probe could knock billions off the market value of Musk's ventures overnight. There's another quieter risk bubbling to the surface: reputational damage. In the digital age, perception can shift faster than any legal process. Brands built on the myth of the flawless innovator, Tesla's clean energy revolution, SpaceX's Mars dreams, now have to reckon with tarnished narratives. Experts like neuroscientist Philip Lowe, once a Musk ally, have gone on record. "I witnessed a sharp decline in his executive function," Lowe told Bloomberg, referencing the now infamous public salute. "It's not just about drugs, it's about judgment." Such words seem to validate the anxieties of institutional investors and regular consumers alike. Will customers trust self-driving cars and rocket launches overseen by a leader whose stability and judgment are under fire? Already, social media has erupted into factions. Some dismiss the controversy as politically motivated. Others cite Sam Harris's warning about Musk's spreading of misinformation as proof the problem runs deeper than drugs alone. Meanwhile, inside the corporations themselves, anxiety is taking a new form: decisive action. There are rumors of stricter internal policies, sudden audits of executive travel, and even discreet wellness checks among the C-suite. A source close to Tesla's board shared, "This isn't about policing lifestyles, but about managing existential risk. If our entire valuation hangs on one man's well-being, we have to act." Yet, as harsh as the fallout could be for Musk, there's also a flicker of opportunity for broader change. This saga is forcing uncomfortable but crucial questions into the open. What are the ethical limits for the ultra-powerful? Should society build systems to catch not just street-level offenders, but also its most celebrated innovators when they veer off course? One possible outcome is a systemic pivot toward transparency and support. Already, HR departments from Silicon Valley to Washington are reportedly re-evaluating mental health resources available to their top executives. The conversation is shifting, from condemnation to prevention, from scandal to systemic reform. If Elon Musk, with all his resources, can't avoid these pitfalls, what hope do the rest of us have? Asked a Fortune 500 leadership coach in a recent summit. We need to make it safe for leaders to seek help before it comes to this. But there's a darker scenario too: the scandal fatigue that numbs public outrage and lets the powerful escape meaningful accountability. Musk's vow to remain a friend and advisor to President Trump, even after his bruised public exit, hints at a system still willing to look the other way if the stakes and influence are high enough. History is full of warning signs. In past eras, charismatic leaders with personal demons often survived, and sometimes even grew stronger, from public scandals. But the digital age leaves little room for secrets to remain buried. As one commentator put it, "We live in the age of receipts. Everything surfaces eventually." For the American public, and for viewers like you, the question is no longer just about one man's choices. It's about a culture that lionizes disruptors and gambles national progress on the shoulders of singular personalities. Are the rules different at the top, or will this moment finally force even the most untouchable innovators to play by the same standards as everyone else? Consider how much of our own lives, our investments, financial, emotional, even ideological, have become entangled with figures like Musk. The electric car in your driveway, the broadband satellite orbiting above, the news algorithm feeding you headlines, all have been shaped by his vision. That intertwining is both a testament to his achievements and a warning of the risks when so much depends on so few. So what can we, as ordinary citizens, learn from this unfolding saga? Firstly, vigilance is essential. The myth that genius immunizes someone from scrutiny is just that, a myth. Whether in business, politics, or everyday life, true progress depends on leaders being held accountable not only for their triumphs, but for their failures and lapses in judgment. That means demanding transparency, not just from our politicians, but also from the titans who shape our future technologies. Secondly, it's a reminder of the urgent need for robust support systems. Substance abuse and mental health challenges don't disappear at the top of the power pyramid. If anything, the pressures and the temptations are greater. For entrepreneurs, students, or anyone chasing big dreams, the lesson is clear. Brilliance and ambition are not antidotes to burnout or personal struggle. Seeking help is not a weakness, but a necessity for sustainable success. Third, for investors and employees, this story is a case study in due diligence. Blind faith in charismatic founders is a dangerous game. As boardrooms across America scramble to adapt, smaller companies and individual investors would do well to take note. Diversity in leadership, clear accountability, and mental wellness protocols are no longer optional extras. They're matters of survival. On a societal level, we're being called to rethink what qualities we actually want in our heroes. Is it time to retire the myth of the flawless disruptor and embrace a new ideal? Leaders who combine vision with humility, creativity with responsibility. Finally, as this chapter in Musk's career closes, at least for now, a more personal lesson emerges: the power of stories to shape reality. The narratives we believe, repeat, and amplify about genius, about success, about redemption will determine the boundaries of what's possible and what's permissible for the next generation of innovators. So where does all this leave us? Will Musk face the same consequences any other executive might, or will the world's most powerful institutions continue to shield him in hopes he'll deliver just one more miracle? The honest answer is still undecided, but the machinery has been set in motion. Lawmakers are asking questions, investors are watching closely, and internal audits have begun. The outcome will send a signal, not just to Musk, but to every would-be disruptor, that no one is beyond the reach of responsibility. Yet here's a secret fact that few have noticed in the noise. In the wake of Blattergate and the pillbox rumors, at least one major government agency has quietly begun drafting new, binding rules for executive transparency and wellness checks among federal contractors. If passed, these regulations could formalize a new era of scrutiny, affecting not just Elon Musk, but the entire culture of American innovation. That's the real legacy of this scandal, an inflection point where the myth of the infallible tech messiah collides at last with the demands of a society that's tired of putting its future in the hands of unchecked brilliance. So, viewers, as these headlines keep evolving, what kind of leadership do you want to see at the helm of tomorrow's revolutions? Will you ask hard questions of those who promise the world? Or will you let spectacle and scandal become the new normal? If you found this story thought-provoking, don't just scroll away. Let's keep the conversation going. Comment below. Do you think Elon Musk will actually face consequences? Or is the system designed to protect its biggest players at all costs? If you have insights, share them. And if you want to stay ahead of the next big story at the crossroads of tech and politics, hit subscribe and ring that bell. Because in the world of power and possibility, today's controversy